welcome to the February 21st, 2024 meeting of the Pitt County Planning Board. This is our first Planning Board meeting of the new year. So welcome to everyone here. First on our agenda, I'd like for Tab to call the roll.
Fred Austin,
Present.
Don Brown,
Present.
Naomi Buck, David Davenport,
Here.
Lisa Ellison,
Here.
Thompson Forbes,
Present.
Lyman Hardy,
Here.
Molly Holdman,
Here.
Minnie Johnson Stewart,
Here.
Steve Little,
Here.
and Charles McLaughlin will not be present tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Tab. Next, we'd like to have a prayer and pledge of allegiance. I'll ask Ms. Johnson Stewart if she'll lead us in a prayer, and then Fred Austin will lead us in a pledge of allegiance. We'll stand.
Father God, as we plan and share together this evening, may you guide us in all matters of business. Let us never lose sight of the blessings that surround us. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we start this meeting. May we voice our truth and all listen with an open heart. With gratitude, we offer this prayer in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to the both of you. You were all mailed minutes for the December 20th, 2023 meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, so moved. Second.
Okay, motion has been made and second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Minutes are approved. At this point, I'll ask for any public addresses to the board. I'll open the floor for any public addresses. Seeing none, I'll close that. Yes, so rezoning request, Ben Rogers, Happy Trail Farms LLC rezoning.
Good evening, everyone. The first rezoning we have this evening was submitted by Happy Trail Farms LLC. The request is to rezone approximately 3.49 acres of their property. It's parcel number 37496. It is located on the northern side of Worthington Road, just west of its intersection with Toll Road. And the request is to go from rural residential to general commercial conditional district to operate a self-storage warehouse facility. Just the site location of the property, you see there it's located again on Worthington Road, just west of its intersection with basically NC 43 South. Some site pictures. The property is currently just vacant and wooded, as you can see there. This is looking east towards NC 43 South. This is west towards County Home Road. The subject property is located adjacent to D.H. Conley High School. There's an existing mini storage facility right to the east of this of the subject property. There's a picture of a residence across the street from the subject property. And there are a couple of commercial uses in the general area. This is the little mini mart up at the intersection of NC 43 South and Mills Road to the east of the subject property. And there is a automobile repair service business just in the general area as well. This is the existing land use. You see the area is mostly vacant and agricultural as well as residential. You see D.H. Conley there in blue across the street, as well as the mini storage directly to the east. The automobile repair is located just to the southwest, just a little bit. The NC 43 South Land Use Plan does identify this property as rural residential and agricultural. That characterization is generally for working farms, larger homesteads, and their associated public and institutional uses, as well as low-density single-family residential lots. Access to sewer service is generally unavailable, and development must utilize on-site septic treatment. And although more dense than the agricultural character area, residential densities may approach 1 or possibly 2 units per acre. and the actual lot size will vary based on the quality of the soils. When possible, preservation of environmental features should be prioritized, and small-scale non-residential land uses that have frontage and access along the NC 43 South corridor may be allowed on a case-by-case basis in a conditional zoning district. This is the existing zoning for the area. You see, again, everything out there is pretty much rural residential, except those two commercial uses, as well as just some commercial property, not necessarily commercially used right now, but commercially zoned, kind of in that 43 South corridor up at the intersection. The general commercial zoning district, it is primarily intended to accommodate a range of retail, service, office, limited wholesale, and moderate density multifamily residential uses in areas that have access to major thoroughfares and the necessary utilities to support such development. And again, a conditional zoning district does allow for the approval of a proposal for a specific use with reasonable conditions to assure that the compatibility of the proposed use with the use and enjoyment of neighboring properties. And again, that proposed use is a self-storage warehouse facility. We did receive a site plan with the application as required. I'm going to highlight some of the features here. So again, they only are proposing about 3.5 acres of that total, I think it's about 9 to 10 acre lot. This is the proposed rezoning area. They're showing a 6-foot chain link fence around the storage facility, the proposed storage buildings, the drive and parking area. They are showing a stormwater management pond, a couple of dumpsters. And there are 2 easements on the property. To the north is a drainage easement, and to the west of the subject property is the gas line that came in a few years ago. So they've shown that, and they're staying outside of that. And then they are showing some existing vegetation at the site. So planning staff does find this request is consistent with the NC 43 South Corridor Land Use Plan. The area requested for rezoning is designated as rural residential agricultural, which does allow small-scale non-residential land uses to be approved with conditional zoning district. Additionally, the area proposed for rezoning is located within close proximity to several other non-residential land uses within the vicinity, including a similar self-storage facility. Staff does also find this request is reasonable and in the public interest because there are several small-scale non-residential land uses within close proximity to the subject property, including a similar self-storage facility. In addition, the proposed use will not generate a significant amount of traffic and will be screened from adjacent residential properties. Staff does again recommend approval with the following additional conditions. So no zoning compliance permit shall be issued until a site plan prepared in accordance with Appendix B of the zoning ordinance is submitted to Pitt County Planning for review and approval. A landscaping plan is required, and the property shall be screened from any adjacent residential use and public road right-of-ways with a 10-foot wide landscape buffer yard planted in accordance with the requirements of Section 10H of the zoning ordinance. Required parking spaces, access drives, and loading areas shall be paved and maintained with concrete, asphalt, or similar material of sufficient weight and thickness and consistency to support anticipated traffic volumes and weights. A soil erosion and sedimentation control plan prepared by an engineer shall be submitted for development of this property that results in land disturbance over 1 acre. And the site must comply with Pitt County Stormwater Ordinance for nutrient control. Nutrient loading and peak flow calculations shall be reviewed and approved prior to any improvements involving more than 1/2 acre. A few more, they must comply with any emergency management requirements for fire protection, and they must obtain all required permits for Pitt County inspections to occupy any proposed structures and comply with any applicable environmental health requirements for wastewater disposal. And the final one is to obtain a driveway permit from NCDOT and comply with all requirements for access to the property. At this time, public comments will now be entertained by the planning board. The board will then make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, who are scheduled to hold a public hearing at their March 18th meeting. So I will turn that over to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We'll go ahead and open the floor for any public comments. We've had several people that have signed up prior to the meeting, so I'll ask when you come up to speak into the microphone, tell us your name, your full address, and just keep your comments to 3 minutes if you would. First on my list is Stephen Craig.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Stephen Craig is my name. I live at 1643 Toll Road. I hope you can appreciate that we chose to live in an area that is zoned rural residential, and we don't see how another storage facility over there is going to enhance our community. I did an internet search on storage facilities in Pitt County, and I found 81. So we don't see a need for additional storage facilities. Specifically, within a 2-mile radius, there are 6 storage facilities: Wintergreen, Blue Sky, Stow and Go, Southside Mini Storage, Charles Harris Self-Storage, and Self-Storage Brothers. There's plenty of spacing within the city or in other areas that are already zoned for commercial or industrial use. We have concerns about additional traffic, noise pollution, other nuisance issues that my neighbors will speak to. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the invitation tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Gerald Sikowski.
Thank you for inviting us. Glad to be here. I live at 2052 Toll Road. Our backyard butts up against the present storage units that were installed by Jesse Lilly, the developer of the entire property, which was supposed to be truly a residential area, and I think the name of it was supposed to be Woodland Point. But we bought the property 25 years ago, and we were told by the real estate agent that there were the lots behind our house would be residential, but they somehow mysteriously, the residential area became storage units. Storage units grew to the size that they are presently, and it takes almost the entire backyard of our house. We're looking at the wall of the storage units. It has the reason we're concerned is over the years, maybe not recently, but several years ago, we found locks from the storage unit tossed over the storage units into our yard. So there obviously was a robbery going on in the units. Our concern, even though there's nothing we can do now about the storage units that are there, and by the way, we never had a rezoning invitation to come and question the rezoning of that area. And we're still wondering how it ever got rezoned to allow the storage units to be there. Now, what happened in the area of, I think just the storage units and what they happen to be. No one lives there, except you've got people coming and going. And it's an invitation for nefarious activity there. There are bolt cutters that'll cut the locks, and that the experience that we're telling you about is there was a time when I looked out my backyard one morning and I saw a television set in the yard and several locks thrown into my yard. So we called the sheriff, and first thing he told me is, you didn't touch the unit, did you? And I said, no. But this is just our story of the potential of storage units butting up against the backyards of residential property. Is that my 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Well, so our complaint is we can't do anything about the storage units, and I think it's devalued our property. We just got the county reassessment of property, and I think our property is not going to sell eventually. We're in our mid-80s, Kathy and myself, and I think that we're going to have a problem selling our property at the present evaluation because of the storage units there.
Okay, thank you.
And we have other issues, but I don't have the 3 minutes
Thank you.
to tell you about it. Thank you.
Francis Mills.
thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Frances Mills. My husband is Laverne Mills. We live at 1934 Worthington Road, Greenville, NC. So my home is right beside D.H. Conley High School. My home is right in front of where the storage buildings would like to go. We have been there ever since 1966. We were almost the first ones on that road. And at the time we bought it, it was residential. So at that time, I figured it would stay residential. The traffic at my home is terrible. With the school, with the storage that's already there, my husband can't hardly mow the grass on the other side of the highway that we keep mowed. I had to move my mailbox on my property and not across the street because I couldn't get to it. A car like to hit me one day. So I proceeded to have it moved. Looking out my front door, I have storage buildings over to my right, and the lights at night shine into my windows. I would hate to have storage buildings in front of me that I would have to look at daily. My opinion, when I bought the land, or when we bought the land, it was residential. And I would hope that it would stay residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Cartwright?
Good evening. My name is Chris Cartwright. I moved here to Pitt County 2005, 2004 after I was honorably served in the Marine Corps for 5 years. I had, in 2005, with my wife, purchased a home at 2030 Toll Road. My house will be sharing the back part of our property line with the new proposed property that is to be rezoned. I work in the electronic and security industry. I've been doing that since 2005. I've worked on multiple customers throughout here in Pitt County, to include Pitt County itself, the ECU, ECU Health, the police department, and more. Later on in my life, as we lived in our home, I was blessed to have 4 boys, ages 7 and 10, and their play area would be literally sharing the fence with this particular public place that's being proposed to be constructed. Having a public place literally one fence away from my children's backyard is a concern for me. It creates an easy target environment for predators. It creates an easy nuisance for loud noises. I've heard music with obscenity from the storage unit that's catty-cornered to me. I've had here revving of muscle cars people have, motorcycles, slamming of doors, and how someone's ruined their Christmas in 1 year as well. What concerns me the most is that anything can go in a storage unit, whether it's your family heirlooms or it could be someone storing things they ain't supposed to be storing, whether it's criminal stuff or just something negligible like, left gasoline in there, left some ammunition. There's nothing to protect my family from any of that stuff going off, especially in a case where people have vandalism due to an issue with someone they're involved with. They might try to break into their unit, may have been intoxicated, breaks into another unit. Proposing this place to be a public place invites people from any time of day to come and be within one fence proximity to my children. At this point, with this thing being here, I will not feel safe to actually even have them out there without me 100% right there on the spot. So, for this reason alone, and many others, I feel that this is not in the best interest of our community. I feel like even changing this to another rezone starts to make our homes, our residential houses, out of place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that did not sign up prior to the meeting? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm Mike Baldwin, and I represent Woody Witchard, who is the owner of Happy Trail Farms. He developed, Jesse Lilly developed the lots, the older lots on Tull Road, and cut out the land for the existing mini storages there. And then Woody bought the remainder. He sold some lots to a builder that's currently building on Tull Road. And don't get me wrong, I respect these residents' opinions very, very much. But I'd always considered a mini storage a kind of a silent neighbor. These are not going to be, there is a high need for this type of storage in Greenville for like small contractors who need a place to put their electrical goods, their plumbing goods, and things like that. These buildings are going to be approximately 14 feet high, solid back wall abutting the neighbors. We'll have vegetation, we'll have a fence, we'll have lighting and video cameras, a locked, keypad entry gate. Mini storage is probably on the type projects we design for the last 35 years are very low traffic. The traffic along Worthington Road is extreme, but a mini storage would be a low traffic volume generator. You don't have bad neighbors, you got quiet neighbors. You don't have parties in the backyard of your neighbors. You've got a metal wall in the backyard. There's no wetlands on the site. The plans will be, submitted and if approved in compliance with your stormwater rules and erosion control plan and other building permit matters. As you see, one of the provisions in this district, small scale type commercial uses of this are kind of the target point of what I think we've asked for. There's no windows at the back of the units. There's no doors, the roll-up doors, and then a door, probably a door on a man door on the front. But that's all on the front. I understand their concern, but I also think it's a reasonable request, and staff supports it as well. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
So I ask the board, do you have any questions for Ben with the planning staff or for Mr. Baldwin or anyone else? Any questions or comments?
I have a question. I'm sorry if you said this. Since this is a conditional zoning, does that mean that if the storage facility doesn't go there, or if they do go there and they close, will that remain commercial zone?
No, so it's just for that use specifically. So if approved, only the mini storage facility could go there. Staff does inspections every 2 years. So like if we went out there in 2 years, it was never developed, we would most likely initiate a process and recommend from staff's side to propose that that is rezoned back to the initial zoning. So that the proposal specifically for this use of a mini storage facility, if it's never developed, then it would revert back to the rezoning. Or if somebody purchased the property, if this was approved and wanted to put something else out there in a general commercial zone, they'd have to come back before this board and the commissioners that they were going to change the use. So this is very specific to this use as the mini storage facility.
Thank you.
Ben, do we have, I know it's, sometime in the past we talked about this, the light and the diffusion. Is there any rules regarding that?
So we do have that the lights have to be downward facing and to stay on site. So that is something that's reviewed during the site plan full review process. They'll have to submit basically a lighting plan to verify that.
So I have a couple of questions. One is about that driveway. You know how I get about the driveways across the street from the school. Because I do know, not just from these neighbors, but from everybody I know whose child has gone to D.H. Conley, that the traffic down there is awful.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a concern about that, and then, well, go ahead with that. But my other question is back to the question that I think Mr. Sikowski asked about, and that is the zoning for the place next door. I realize this is revisionist history, but is that a properly conditioned and zoned for that
Eric, you know the history,
parcel?
was that? See if Eric remembers the history. That was before I got here.
Yeah, so that mini storage was actually in existence prior to zoning. And so it was zoned general commercial when the county adopted countywide zoning in 2003. So it was essentially a grandfathered use, but it was zoned commercial because that was the most appropriate zone for it.
Is it 24-hour accessible? I know it has a gated, where you have to get a pad to go in, but would someone be able to get in there at 4 o'clock in the morning, back and forth? Do you know, Mike?
Mr. Chairman,
Step up here, Mike, if you don't mind.
I think that could be a condition. I know I rent a unit at Stow and Go on 43. There, kind of before you get to Toll Road, and they don't allow 24-hour access. So we would be, if that's something that helps some issues, sure, we would be agreeable to that. To
Okay.
a 6 a.m. to it stays light in the summer to 8:30 or something like maybe 6 a.m. to 9, something like that.
Okay.
And ma'am, the concern about traffic and the turn, if you look on the aerial, the way the driveway placement is, there is no left turn conflict. So that's what you're always trying to avoid. And when you have a center lane turn, the cars coming from Highway 43 would turn into D.H. Conley before cars heading on Worthington Road toward 43 would turn into this facility. So you don't have opposing left turns, which makes for that's the general rule that we try to follow to alleviate, the head-ons. This has this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question
Yes,
for
sir.
Mr. Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin, would you happen to know whether the stow and go is at full capacity or not?
The stow and go, well, I know this. I was out there today, they're paving it. So I think, and I talked to Charles Harris, who owned it today. He called me. I think it's close, sir. I don't want to say for sure, because Charles has always, talked about how the occupancy rates have always been good, and that's a well-kept facility. And he's the one that I was referring to that does have time limitations on the access to the facility.
Ben, can you go back to the site plan? Mr.
You
Baldwin?
you still won't, okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
you're probably the best to answer this. On this site plan, does it show, I know that the landscaping plan has not been done, but how much space is there for that to even be done on this? It's hard for me to tell.
As far as landscape,
Especially between the storage facility and the lots behind it.
well, right now, the existing ditch, sir, that's just a little bit on the residential homes, it has a grown-up line of pine trees. And then we've got 20 feet between our building and that property line for additional vegetation, which is a significant, room to, especially you can stagger them back and forth to, have a nice view blocker. Yes, there's ample room, and as well as there's ample room on the front of to provide, substantial visibility barriers, and not barriers, but especially on the front, but, enough to screen it so that it looks like it was done properly.
So just so I'm understanding this correctly, that light green shaded line behind that section E of storage buildings,
Yes, sir.
is that the easement for the gas line?
No, sir, the easement is
Is
to
over to the left.
the easement's to the west, to the left of the property.
But that is an easement too, is what that arrow is.
That drainage easement up top.
There is a drainage easement on our side as well as, there's one on the other side, if I'm not mistaken. But you can see the little squiggly line on the, where the northernmost edge of the, green line goes, sir. That's where the hedge of existing, pines that have grown up are located. So there's already a buffer in place on those specific buildings, and the building E more or less almost terminates before you run out of that existing buffer.
And Ben, this question might be for you, just to continue on that. The storage facilities go right up to that easement, so when they do a landscape plan, can the landscape plan be on that easement? Or does it have to be undisturbed? And the reason for my question is if so, then there's no room for an easement.
Right. And our ordinance does allow, so in addition to that 10-foot buffer, that section H that we mentioned in our conditions, that if existing vegetation is adequate, or oftentimes what we see is it goes above and beyond what the requirements would be for planning, then that's allowed. If it's ever removed or destroyed, then the developer would have to come in and meet those standards. So I think along that back property line, as well as that front triangle along 43 South, that's a different property owner. Obviously don't have any idea what his intentions are as far as keeping that wood or cleared or otherwise. But as Mr. Baldwin said, I think some of the existing vegetation is going to provide potentially a better screening than whatever our screening requirements would be, as long as it stays put. Of course, like I said, if it's ever removed, our language does say that it has to be replaced to meet those standards.
And, but to answer the question, if that vegetation is removed, it's not on the property line, or on this, within this property. Can that easement become occupied by vegetation to barrier the storage facility from the homes?
Yeah, it should be within that easement.
It should not be within that easement?
Correct.
And so, just to close the loop, make sure I'm understanding, if that vegetation was removed, there is no room to put a landscape buffer on that back line.
As shown there, so there may be a condition where if the board felt necessary to bump that row of section E of the buildings to allow that in the future, if that was something that's a major concern, and assuming the applicant would be satisfied with that since they do have to agree to any proposed conditions, in that area that, they need to be built 10 foot further down to give you that 10 foot between the easement and any potential construction. I think that conversation could be had.
I have a question. With the concerns of the residents and with the small businesses that are there, I have a question about how will it be screened if they see that there is a lot of traffic, including with the other storage and other business and all the traffic. My grandchildren went to Deach College, so I was there to pick them up, and I know how much traffic it is there. So how would they know how it would be screened?
So with our vegetation plan,
No,
that
not
can be shared obviously, so.
I'm not talking about vegetation, that was his question. My question is the amount of traffic. How it states here that the amount of traffic will be screened from adjacent residential properties.
I'm not sure I follow your question, I'm sorry.
My question is, how will it be screened? This is right here. Okay, sir.
Please.
And I think I understand. You're talking about the traffic within the facility?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And the other, you're gonna add to the storage. The other storage is there from what I've heard back there. So how will this addition?
Yeah, two ways. Obviously, the buildings create a visual barrier from the residential uses. So other than at just a few minor locations, the buildings prevent these residents from seeing any traffic on this site. As well as what we could make a condition as well is, I've called for a 6-foot-high chain link fence with 3-strand wire. It could be a condition on this to do the slats, which, are you familiar with what I'm talking about, ma'am? The slat, and they provide.
I'm a developer.
Yes, ma'am.
Real estate developer,
Yes, ma'am.
so I
And
understand
they-
exactly what I might not understand, but what?
And they provide a pretty much 100% visual barrier as well. And then, sir, to your concern about the vegetation, also we could have a condition, and that's the thing about a conditional use plan, is to leave, 10 or 15 feet of existing, because it's wooded out there. Leave 10 or 15 feet of the existing vegetation between any proposed uses and the property line.
Sir, would you be in contact with this lady who's already have a lot of light coming into her house?
ma'am.
To
I've
make
already-
sure that it won't add any more light into her front door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And what we have is the down lights, and I've worked in towns where we provide a lighting plan and a photometric plan that shows the lumens, and then we would be doing that. I wrote everybody's, I've got Ms. Mills, I've got Mr. Cartwright, I've got Mr. Sikowski, and I'd like to know that, when I get to his age, that I'd love to think I was as articulate and well-versed as he was. I was impressed. But the first gentleman, I did not get his name. I would like to get that, maybe if Ben would provide that, because I know Mr. Witcher, he likes to reach out to neighbors. So between the leaving existing vegetation, the slats in the fence for the 100% barrier, the actual screening that the buildings provide of the traffic within this facility, you know, I think we could address those concerns.
Okay.
Mr. Austin? The illustration that we're seeing here with existing vegetation, the outside forested area that's going to be undisturbed, is that still part of the plat?
So to the west of the property line?
Yes, the west and south.
So it's all in the same property right now. I think it's about 9 or 10 acres total. Of course, we're looking to rezone it to the east of that gas line, that 3.5 or whatever it was. So that is all owned by Mr. Witcher. Not sure what his future plans are for that or not. It is currently wooded and undeveloped.
I can address that. We're gonna combine that and add it with the other lots that have, you know, so it's.
So you're going to slice that off and move it over to the other lots?
Well, we're gonna combine it in a whole so that it, you know, and that's what Mr. Witcher, you know, he came and met with the planning department, you know, before he started this to seek their input on it, and that's when it was, you know, they said, you know, use the gas line as a good buffer, you know, excuse me, you've already got an area of separation there, and then develop to the right of it, and that's what we've done.
And the gas line is not illustrated in this?
It's, sir, it's in where the red line is on the western boundary. It runs right where that the westernmost red line.
Thank you.
That's the gas line.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I didn't get a satisfactory answer from
Okay.
staff regarding.
Oh, staff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, regarding that driveway.
Yes, ma'am.
I do not, I have not had a child at D.H. Conley, and I don't know what the traffic patterns are in and out of the school. And so I do see that driveway directly across the street. I don't know if that's just for baseball games or what, but it does look like people can make left turns in and out of that driveway, whether they're coming from, you know, they might be coming from the other direction. And so I just wanted to see if you could address that, please.
So, Ms. Holman, I have one son that has graduated from Conley, and I have a daughter that's a senior there now, so I can speak to some of the traffic issues out there. As far as the D.H. Conley Road you see there, in the mornings, that's a left in and right in only. So like, you can't, that is the road that the students take to get into the student parking lot in the mornings. And same in the afternoon, that's the way they go out. But I think most times they'll go out the backside of D.H. Conley and come around behind it. So there is a lot of traffic that comes through there, particularly during those hours when school is letting in and out. But I don't know there's from my experience, there's not been a significant amount of traffic on that road outside of school hours. So it just depends usually on the time of day as to how much traffic you're going to experience on there. But in terms of the driveway itself for this site, DOT has reviewed this plan, and they did make comments that they'll need a commercial driveway permit, so we don't dictate driveways, obviously. So when we get a full site plan in, they'll also review that and would check, make sure if it needs a turn lane or it needs any other kind of improvements, they'll make those determinations, and they would issue the permit for the driveway itself.
How many children go to Conley?
A lot. A lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
All right. A lot of questions. Any other questions before we entertain a motion either way?
Mr. Chairman, may
Yes,
I? As I look at this and realize what our planning staff has approved or is suggesting that we approve, I agree that this plan is consistent, or this project is consistent with our land use plan. And also, it's a reasonable request. But then there's a third part, I think, to it, that I'm not sure it's to the public interest that we're dealing with here. And reason being, maybe it's just something that I'm reminded of, that we just had a project just recently that went to the commissioners, and we passed it on, but it was denied at commissioner level because of the public interest. So in that response, or in that view, I'd like to say at some point in time, when you get ready for a motion, I've got one, but I question this project simply because of the public interest.
Well, if you've got a motion, you can make it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this request be denied.
Second.
All right, motion has been made to deny the rezoning request and seconded by Lisa? Yes, Lisa Ellison. Any other discussion before we vote? All in favor of denying the request, raise your right hand. All opposed?
Did Lyman vote?
He voted with us. Okay. The motion to deny has been, the motion to deny has been accepted
Great, thank you all.
and passed.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Pitt Solar LLC rezoning. Mr. Goody.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have another second rezoning request tonight. It is for Pitt Solar LLC. The request is to rezone approximately 133 and about a third acres of property. It's owned by Christopher Clyde James. Parcel number is 03756, and it's located on State Road 1508, Wadey Carson Road. It's north of its intersection with NC 30. And the request is to go from rural agricultural to rural agricultural conditional district to operate a solar farm. So this is the site itself. It's in the northern end of the county. It's just east of Bethel, kind of, as I said, just north of NC 30. And just a little background on the request. On September 14th of 2020, the applicant, Pitt Solar, they were previously under the name of Bethel NC11 Solar. They were issued a conditional use permit by the Board of County Commissioners to operate a solar farm on several parcels east of Bethel. The zoning ordinance, as this board probably recalls, was amended to make these types of uses a conditional zoning district. So that is what's now required for a solar farm in the RA zoning district. The total size of the solar farm that was approved under that permit is approximately 942 acres. So it's a big site, of which about a third of it, or 317 acres, give or take, is located within the county's jurisdiction. So this kind of gives you an idea of the size of the again, this is the already that's approved solar farm that's under the conditional use permit. The area that's shaded there in blue is the area that's within Bethel's jurisdiction. And then the area that's in red that you see is in the county's jurisdiction. So that was the only thing that was considered for that permit. What this request is an expansion of this facility. It would add, again, 133 acres, give or take, which you see in the yellow there. It'd also add probably about another 70 or so acres in the town of Bethel's jurisdiction. But again, we don't do anything with the town of Bethel. This won't be part, that part is not part of this request. It's only that area in the county's jurisdiction. So again, the expansion to add approximately 133 acres. Again, what's in town of Bethel's jurisdiction is not subject to that original conditional use permit, nor is it subject to this request. If you've gone up in that area, you notice that the solar farm has not been built. The reason for that is because Duke Energy Progress is upgrading the line, the transmission line that runs to that site. And so before the state's utility commission will issue them a permit to operate the solar farm, that transmission line's got to be upgraded. It's they're in the process of doing right now. So that existing conditional use permit, they've been back to the commissioners a few times, several times to extend that permit's expiration date so that it's still valid. So They do still have a valid permit on that area, and so again, the rezoning request is only for this new area that we're talking about tonight. This is the site itself. This is looking at it from Wadey Carson Road. This is the eastern side, and also again the eastern side of Wadey Carson, and then across the street on the western side of Wadey Carson there. This is looking down Wadey Carson to the south as if it was heading back to NC 30. And then to the north, if you're staying on Wadey Carson, it actually dead ends right there at that last house on the left there. So this is the house that's on the site. According to the site plan, this will be covered over solar panels. So the applicant may have a little more information, but it's my understanding this house is probably going to be removed in order to accommodate the site and the facility. Same thing on the other side. There's a single wide mobile home, as well as that structure, that old house. These two structures are actually in the town of Bethel's jurisdiction. If you look back at this picture, that Bethel line runs just in front of these structures here. So, but on this western side of Wadey Carson Road in the county's jurisdiction, there are no solar panels planned on that western part, but it is within the area that's being rezoned, if that makes sense to anybody. And I'll show it to you a little bit on the site plan as well. So existing land use is currently primarily agricultural. It's a very remote area of the county. There's not a lot of residential development out there. There is some along NC 30 that you can see, but for the most part, it's open farmland. Envision Pitt County designates it as agricultural, and you can also see there's an existing, or the plan designates that commercial area along NC 11 there. The agricultural designation includes prime farmlands that are vital to agricultural production within the county. Activities include agriculture, forestry, and limited low-density residential and commercial or institutional uses. It's located near strategic agricultural lands and surrounding areas. And again, the intended uses are generally agriculture, agribusiness, forestry, limited commercial, single-family properties, and occasional low-density, small-scale residential subdivisions. The zoning in the area, you see it's almost predominantly rural agricultural with some commercial there along 11, just south of the town of Bethel. The RA district is primarily intended to accommodate very low-density residential uses as well as associated public and institutional uses, low-intensity commercial uses, and agriculture-related industrial uses in areas that are principally characterized as rural in nature. Again, in the RA district, solar farms are required to have a conditional zoning district, so it does allow for the approval of a proposal for a specific use with reasonable conditions. And again, that use is a solar farm. Solar farms do have some development standards they have to meet. First is any equipment has to be a minimum of a 50-foot setback from property lines, as well as a minimum 100-foot separation from any residence. Any inverters on the site have to be a minimum of 150 feet from any residence. There's a maximum height of 25 feet for all equipment and structures. Submittal requirements include site plan, standard drawings of the components, copies of lease agreements and solar easements, evidence of utility interconnection, as well as decommissioning plans and the cost estimate. And you have some of that in your packet. We didn't include all of it because it was about 1.5 inches thick, but you do have a copy of the decommissioning plan in your packet as well as a narrative of the project. There are structural requirements that have to be met. It has to meet all building code requirements. Underground electrical wiring is required. Fencing and screening is also required. And any signage that's on the site can only contain the emergency contact information. And then if the site is ever discontinued or abandoned, that equipment has to be removed within 1 year of inactivity. So this is the site plan, and just to kind of point out again, this shows the Bethel ETJ. So again, we're only dealing with, this is the previously approved solar farm, but tonight we're only dealing with that area that's in the yellow there that's shown. This is a closer look at the site plan itself. You see Wadey Carson Road and NC 30 there highlighted in red. Again, the Bethel ETJ line and those areas that were already previously approved. And then this is the proposed rezoning area highlighted in the red. Where the solar panels are going to be located there is highlighted in the yellow. So you see not all of the property is going to be utilized for solar panels or not planned for it, but does encompass more area around it for the rezoning tonight. This is the location of the inverters. Again, it's a very remote area, so there's no issue of them being too close to any of the homes out there. And then there's also existing vegetation around most of the site, so it'll be pretty well hidden from sight from at least from NC 30. The applicants are also proposing a vegetative buffer along the front. One thing that's not shown on the site plan but will be required for a final site plan is there are some riparian buffers that are shown in there. They did account for it, they're just not showing the buffer, so that area you see in the blue is kind of where that buffer in general would be. Staff does find that the request is consistent with the envisioned Pitt County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The area requested for rezoning is designated as agriculture, and existing uses in the area are predominantly agricultural with very limited residential uses. As we noted in our staff report, the area will be an expansion of a larger solar farm that was previously approved in 2020, and which will also encompass several surrounding properties once development is completed. So when we sent out notices, I think over half of the folks that we sent notices to were actually the owners of the properties that the solar farm will be on. So there really aren't a whole lot of other neighboring properties that it would affect outside of those ones that are already proposed for the same type of use. Staff also finds that the request is reasonable in the public interest. There's very limited residential development adjacent to the site. And as I mentioned, many of the surrounding properties have previously been approved to develop as a solar farm. Additionally, the site will be screened and buffered from any nearby residential properties along NC 30 and will have minimal or no adverse impacts on adjacent properties. So staff does recommend approval of the request, subject to the requirements of the ordinance for solar farms. We also recommend the following additional conditions. No zoning compliance permit shall be issued until a site plan prepared in accordance with Appendix B of the ordinance is submitted to our office for review and approval. They will need to show a 50-foot riparian buffer on all stream features on the site unless they get documentation from either DWQ or from our office showing that that feature is exempt. They also have to obtain a commercial driveway permit from NCDOT and comply with all requirements for access to the property. So with that, Mr. Chair, we'd now like to entertain public comments. I know we do have representatives from the applicant here tonight, and then the board will make a recommendation to the commissioners, and the commissioners are scheduled to hold a public hearing on March 18th. So with that, Mr. Chair, we would welcome public comments.
Great, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
I'll open the floor for public comments. I've got one sign up. I believe it's the applicant, Jason Hathcock. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Jason Hathcock, 6750 NC Highway 30, East Bethel. Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Board, and any guests in attendance. On behalf of Sun Energy One, we thank you for your time and consideration as we present to you the solar Pitt Solar project. I'm the Development Director for Sun Energy One, and tonight I've got some colleagues with me to answer any questions you all may have about the project. Sun Energy One was started in 2009. It's a family-owned, founder-owned business. We're headquartered in Stamford, Connecticut, with a regional office right here in Pitt County, just south of Bethel. We're committed to the communities in which we operate. We provide sustainable development and employment opportunities for thousands of families. To date, we've constructed over 60 solar projects and have a strong presence in North Carolina. Our successful track record in North Carolina, along with our relationship with utilities and energy partners, has allowed us to become one of the most respected and experienced solar companies in the country. Our reputation depends on delivering high-quality projects from beginning to end. We strive to achieve excellence in development, construction, and operation of our projects. We do this by focusing on safety, ethics, and developing partnerships, community engagement, and teamwork across all departments. We work hard to ensure we are a good neighbor and to remain in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws and permits. We are committed to creating a long-term partnership with Pitt County and look forward to working with you on this project. On the project itself, Pitt Solar is submitting a rezoning application to Pitt County for approximately 133-acre parcel number 03756 located at 3865 Wadey Carson Road. The purpose for rezoning is to install a portion of the solar farm and its equipment, which once constructed will be capable of generating up to 150 megawatts of electricity. The facility, once in service, will be able to provide energy to power thousands of homes. The project's to be located within the town of Bethel and Pitt County, north of NC 30, along Big Oak Road. Prior to installing the arrays, erosion and sediment control features will be constructed. This project will be installing ground-mounted solar panels and a new switching station, otherwise known as a substation. There will be a 6-foot security fence with a 1-foot barbed wire, which will encompass the entire solar facility. Additionally, there will be 40-foot wide security access gates to allow access to the site. Once the solar facility is constructed, the ground cover will be planted along the vegetative buffer, along with the vegetative buffer. It's anticipated the operations and maintenance personnel will visit the site 4 to 6 times per year, and there will be no additional burden to Pitt County, including roadway, water, sewer, schools, or fire and police. Well, thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hathcock. Anyone else want to speak before questions from the board? Okay, we'll close the public comment session. Any questions? A couple.
Mr. Chair, I have so many questions.
Yes, I know you do, Molly. Go ahead.
My first question is, I have questions about money. And my questions are, how is Pitt County going to benefit from this? What kind of tax money are we gonna see from this? What kind of, I understand there'll be 600 full-time jobs while building this large project, but how long will those last? Will those people be from Pitt County, or will they be folks who are shipped in from elsewhere who have built these kinds of sites before? I'm just trying to figure out how this, and where's the power going? Is this power gonna help lower our utility bills in Pitt County or in eastern North Carolina?
Might get Mr. Hathcock to answer some of that, because we don't dictate where the workers come from. We can't say they have to be from Pitt County, that sort of thing. In terms of the rates, usually what they do is they will sell the power back to the utility company, and the utility company will use that power for whatever they need it for. So I don't know you'll necessarily see a reduction in your utility bill based off of it, but they, generally the utility companies, my understanding, they have a certain percentage of power they have to generate from renewable resources, and that's why they go to solar farms and pick the energy and buy the energy from them. But Mr. Hathcock might be able to answer a little bit more about the construction and the jobs for you.
As far as income to the county, and typically you'll see a real estate tax increase over its current use. And so we're talking about, several hundred acres of real estate that's going to be in a different use. So should see some increased real estate tax revenue for the county. Some counties also impose a machine and tools tax. And a facility like this, we're talking north of $100 million to construct. So if there is a machine and tools tax assessed on the project, that would be a significant increase in tax revenue. As far as lower power bills, all I can say is, we don't dictate what the utility is going to charge the customers, but onshore wind is the cheapest form of new electricity generation. Second is utility scale solar. So we can generate electricity far cheaper than coal plants, natural gas, nuclear, all the other forms that are out there. So it should, I wouldn't say lower the bill, but it's providing them one of the cheapest forms of energy to their grid. I hope that answered your question. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So the tax revenue won't be based on the farm tax. It would be a different use, and so it's not considered agriculture, it's considered commercial.
Correct.
Okay. And then where's this power going?
Oh, so the power, we're going to be installing a new three-breaker ring bus substation on site. The power will travel up to the 115 kV transmission line, and those electrons will flow in whatever direction they're needed. So if you have large load areas, most likely Greenville, that's where they're going to head towards, would be wherever it's being pulled. I would think of it like a plumbing system. So you have a pressurized system, and wherever there's an open spigot, that's where the water's going to go. Electricity acts in the same manner. So I would imagine most of it's going to be heading south, right down to Greenville, and maybe some very close by, but it's going to head along a transmission line and be dropped down at nearby substations.
Thank you.
Residents, it looked like there was one house that was maybe unoccupied and another, the single wide home looked like people lived there.
Yes. Typically what we'll do, and in this particular case, that same property owner has land on the other side of the street that's not included in the project. And so what we would typically do is offer, if you'd like to stay locally and stay on the property, we'll move the house across the street. We've got lots of equipment at our Bethel office to do such things, or we could hire out another contractor to do that. I'm not sure if the one house is habitable or not, but we'll certainly offer that to the landowner.
Thank you.
Mr. Hathcott, is there a reason why we're adding a parcel this late into the process?
Yes. So when we submitted the interconnection request to PJM, who oversees the transmission grid, we wanted to hit a certain size project because the transmission lines are rated for a certain amount of power, and we found that optimal size at 150 megawatts. Due to some wetland features and riparian buffers and then additional vegetative buffers that we need to incorporate into the design, it didn't allow us to meet that 150 megawatt target. And so that's why we're asking to add an additional parcel so we can basically maximize the facility.
Back to the construction and the jobs. So you can't, you said, I think maybe he said you can't decide where the folks come from, but how has that worked in previous
we can
projects?
Decide. So actually most of the employees are right here in our Bethel office. They're employed with Sun Energy One. We don't have 1,000 employees. We have several hundred. But we'll need to hire local businesses, and without them, we couldn't build a project like this. We're going to need people to deliver gravel, porta-johns. We're going to need landscaping companies to come in and install our buffers. We need earth-moving equipment. All sorts of people are going to be needed for this project. We like to hire local. It tends to keep money locally, and it's a whole lot better on the roads. So for all of our projects, we like to mobilize people from the local community to help with the project. And one of the things we'll be doing before we break ground is reaching out to the local business community to let them know what we're looking for and give them opportunities to sign up as a subcontractor for us and walk them through that process to be a vendor.
And the timeline of a site like this?
So a site of this size typically takes about 12 months to construct from the start date. We're in communication with Duke about the rebuild of that Rocky Mount to Battleboro line. They're anticipating an in-service date of July of '25. So working back from that, we hope to mobilize here fairly soon, I'd say in the next month or two, moving equipment, at least a work trailer on site to get started. And, we'll probably ramp up construction in summertime.
Thank you.
Anything else? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recommend we take staff's recommendation and approve this project.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion's been made to approve this request and seconded by Don Brown. Any other discussion?
I just wanted to make one more statement. I'm sorry to take so much time. There was recently a 1,000-acre project that was approved in Grifton. This is approximately the same size. I think the one in Grifton is private. is it a private enterprise?
It's utility scale as well, so it'll eventually be, like them, they'll be purchasing, the utility company will be purchasing power from them as well. So it is will be public power, give or take. But yeah, it's developed under a private company, just like the Sun Energy one, yes.
So my question is, in looking in the future land use map, how many more of these would go in Pitt County? I mean, that's a lot of
Yeah.
that's bigger than Bethel.
Yeah, it's, and again, Mr. Hathcock might have a little bit more insight in terms of how they locate and site these facilities, but a lot of times I know they're looking for certain size transmission lines. Depends on how the sun comes over them in certain directions, so it's not like every site in the county can be utilized for a solar farm. You would just blanket the whole county. There are certain locations that are better than others, and I think that's what they look for when they're siting them. So our land use plan doesn't really speak to solar, but again, it is a renewable energy source, and it does serve a benefit for the larger good, usually with utilities. So again, they're not changing the district to like an industrial district. It's still staying rural agricultural. And also theoretically, once they're decommissioned, they can be pulled up and it can hopefully be turned back into farmland. It's not like you have a giant concrete pad that's just taking up the land. So hopefully they could eventually go back to farmland or could be redeveloped for another use in the future. So, but yeah.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of this rezoning request, I'd ask that you raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, okay, Eric, you're back up. Comprehensive Parks and Recreation Master Plan? Yes, sir. So I'm here tonight just to give you all an update kind of on some recreation activities that are going on that we're kind of excited about. There's a lot of changes coming to Parks and Rec in the county. First thing that we're going to talk about, though, is we are working to develop a comprehensive Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The last plan was done in 2015, but they generally update them about every 10 years or so. And these types of plans are needed if they're going for grant funding and that sort of thing. These funding agencies, whether it's PARDF or state parks, they want to make sure that you've got a plan in place to show what you're planning to do. So this plan is intended to assess the current and future needs for parks and recreation facilities within the county. Myself and Alice King with Community Schools, we've been working to oversee this project. We've got a consultant, it's McGill and Associates out of Raleigh, that's helping us with this. And so in the end, hopefully this will provide a realistic plan or an action plan for the future. Again, focusing on those park facilities, trails, programming, staffing, and will provide practical strategies to guide the decisions of county leadership, the board commissioners, over those next 10 years when they're looking to see whether they're going to fund certain recreation activities. So this process is expected to continue through fall of 2024. We just started in October, and so it's about a 12-month process. We're just kind of wrapping up our public input phase of the project. We started off with some focus group meetings where we were meeting with certain groups of folks, asking them very kind of pointed questions that are aligned with what they're interested in. So we talked with business and tourism officials. We had economic development. We had area nonprofit groups that we talked with, public health officials, veterans and seniors, homeschooling groups, as well as Pitt County schools officials and some of the county commissioners. They are all able to kind of meet with us and give their input and answer a lot of questions that our consultant had for them. We did see a lot of themes that were started popping up during these discussions. First is not enough recreational resources in the rural areas. When you look at maps of where those recreation and park areas are, it's primarily centered around the city of Greenville and in and around it. So need more sites out in the area that are rural areas. Also, school sites. For a long time, community schools their mission has been to kind of utilize these public school sites, the playgrounds and the fields and consider those as almost school parks. Well, we are in a sort of post-Columbine, post-Sandy Hook world, and so these sites are locked down, and so they're not as accessible as they once were. If you have a small child and you want to take them to a playground, you can't take them to the schools during the day. You can't take them out onto the football fields or the soccer fields and play with them. So that's a major issue. They viewed that lack of investment, particularly in recreational opportunities, that it's a factor in people that are leaving the county. Particularly the younger generation that are graduating from college. They're looking for more of that work-life balance, and they want to work somewhere and also have opportunities to play and have a good life. So lack of recreation, again, is also a limiting factor when trying to attract new businesses and tourism to the county. So these businesses, when they come in and they want employees, they want things for their employees to do while they're here. And also one thing that kind of came up is we need a better brand identity. That was a major theme pretty much across all the groups. People have a hard time distinguishing between what's a county program and what's a city program. Particularly like Alice Keene Park. It's a county park. The county owns it, the county runs it. But if you ask most people in these groups, they all would say it was a city park. And so we need to kind of have a better identity or better branding or advertising or marketing and kind of have something that sets us apart from the city so that people know that it's the county that's providing these services. We also had a number of public engagement events. Just before Christmas, we went out to a Mexican. They had a holiday event at a Holly Hill Church up in Belvoir, and this was a fantastic opportunity for us because it's all Latinos, and this is traditionally a very underrepresented group in activities like this. We don't get a lot of input from folks. So this was an opportunity for us to really kind of reach out to the population, get their input and see what their needs were. And part of this public input was we had what we call visual preference boards. And we take them and it's a real quick input. We give them stickers. They say, what is your top 3 choice of park and recreation facility? What do you think we need? What do you want to see more of? And they can very quickly put a sticker on each one that they want. And if there was something that wasn't on there, we'd write that down too and take that input. But it's a very quick way to see, visually, what's the biggest need? What do people want the most? So again, we went to the Christmas event in January. We met with the Diabetes Management Group at Public Health, got their input. We met with another seniors group out at the district park. And then we also had a booth at the Junior League Volunteer Expo in Greenville on the 27th. And one of the things that our consultant McGill is really big on is what they call their Chick-fil-A model, where we go to the school sites, and while people are waiting in line in the afternoons to pick up their kids, we hit them with the boards. We go down the line and have the boards, explain what we're doing, and it takes 1 to 2 minutes. They can give their input, and it's a real quick way for us to get a lot of input. So we hit 5 schools during that. We did 6 technically, because it was Wintergreen Primary and Intermediate. We did those both in the same day. We had 2 groups, so we got about 80 folks there. Grifton School, HB Sugg Elementary, GR Whitfield, and Pactolus Elementary. So this is just what I was talking about with the visual preference boards. There's about 32 different types of facilities on there. And again, it's a real easy way to see which one is the most popular. In these, school pools and aquatic centers tended to be the most popular. Now, doesn't mean we're necessarily going to be building a bunch of pools and aquatic centers because they are expensive to maintain. But it's easy to see kind of what people want. What are they looking for? What kind of opportunities do they want to see in the county for recreation? And when we added up all the folks that we met with to do this, we had over 700 participants. So that was a really great turnout for us and really got a lot of info from those folks. We've also had an online survey that's been running. We're getting ready to shut that down because it's been running for about 2.5 months or so now. We've had over 950 responses to that survey, so that's been a really great response. Some of the things that we're gathering out of that is there's 98% of people that took the survey are in favor of expanding the recreation opportunities in the county, so that's really great. There's a general desire for more parks in the rural areas, more passive and open spaces, as well as more multi-purpose centers and spaces. And one of the questions we asked was what types of barriers are there to accessing these sites? Many people said there was not enough time. They just didn't have time to go to the parks. Sometimes the facilities were too far away or not available, and again, the school sites they can't go to when they need to. We're also running a statistically valid community needs assessment, and what this is, it's a mailed survey that's going out. It's being conducted by ETC Institute as part of our contract. It's a much more detailed survey. It takes about 15 minutes or so to complete. But they take a random sample of households within the county. It's about 10,000 households, and they send it out just randomly. And those surveys can be completed online, or they can be completed on paper and mailed back. And they do offer an incentive. If you complete it, it enters you into a drawing for a $500 gift card. So hopefully we'll get some folks, get a good return rate on those for that. But if you receive it, or if you know anybody else that receives the survey, please have them complete it and have them send it back. We really appreciate it. So this is just an example of a survey that was online. It was very easy to complete. It took about 5 minutes to do it. Some of the things we asked, like, what are the types of activities that you could do at a public park or recreation facility? What do you want to see? And what we did was we also offered the survey in English and Spanish. And we did marketing cards. So every time we went somewhere and we were in front of people, we were handing out cards, having them take the survey and trying to get them to do it. So it was a real easy thing. And like I said, 950 responses is a great rate. We were shooting for 1,000, but I think we're going to come up just a tad short. So. And in terms of the response rates that we got, it was a pretty good representation across the county. This shows where people lived in the county, and if you take into consideration the populations of the towns, of course Greenville's going to be the highest return, but we did get similar results from all the smaller towns. So it really was a good kind of cross-section of the county itself. Also with the racial component, we asked them what their race was. And that was a fairly good spread too in terms of the returns. So one of the things that's coming up is we are getting a new county parks and recreation department. You may have heard about this. Community schools and recreation has been under Pitt County Schools for about 40 years, and it's been pretty much a truly unique partnership. We're one of the few, if not the only county that has this type of partnership between our parks and recreation and community schools. And beginning July 1st, all community schools and recreation will be transitioning under the county. So they won't be under schools anymore. They will be a county department, and they'll become Pitt County Parks and Recreation. One of the main factors was that because of that heavy reliance on the schools, it really limits when people can go out and recreate and use those facilities. And also, with the current plans we've got and the proposed expansion of the facilities and programs, it was really much better just to transition under the county where we could give it a little bit better long-term care and management of that program. So this is kind of what the organizational chart will look like. If they'll have a true Parks and Recreation director. Currently, Community Schools is under the athletic director for Pitt County Schools, Rob Malone. So they will have their own departmental or department head. So he has to wear a lot of other hats under Pitt County Schools. Can't always provide his full attention to community schools. So this will have an actual director that can do that now. Also at the Alice Keene District Park with the new community center and gym that's going in, there'll be a new site director, as well as some more part-time folks like officials, game officials, and coordinators and that sort of thing. The new gym out at the office park that's going in will also, of course, need staffing. So we'll have a site director out there, as well as coordinator, receptionist, and additional part-time staff to man that. And while we're talking about the community centers, they are currently under construction out at Alice Keene Park. If you've been out to the park or out to the Ag Center, you've seen a lot of activity going on out there, a lot of construction. And just in November 2022, the county allocated $10 million in ARPA funds. So it was $5 for each facility. The commissioners approved the site plan for the county office park last April. And then in October, they started construction on both facilities. And so far, they're estimated to be complete in early 2025. And with that, I don't have any more information. So if anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer anything I can.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Great idea is taking those boards out to the schools. All right. Few informational items, Mr. Jonas Hill.
Good evening. Just to give you an update on a few items included in your agenda packet, you'll see on page 69 the preliminary assessment resolution for Oak Hill East subdivision. That's dealing with some of what we refer to as orphan roads. The roads that were never taken over by the Department of Transportation, even though they were proposed to be public roadways. So just some, that resolution is included in your agenda. Planning staff will work with the contractor as well as our engineering department to ensure that the improvements are made to those roads so that they are acceptable by DOT. We plan to kind of kick that off the end of March, when the weather tends to break around here and they can start putting down new asphalt. So we'll have to take that project back to the commissioners for a final assessment resolution once that project has been completed. So just to bring you up to speed on that. Also included in your package is the monthly reports for both December and January, since we didn't have a meeting in December, just showing the department's activities, things that we were involved with within our department. Typically, it kind of slows down December and January, but this year was not the case. We were, you can see in the reports there that we were full steam ahead through Christmas and New Year's. Also, there's some other correspondences that we've included in there. Mr. Little brought up the mining request for rezoning that went before the Board of Commissioners and was ultimately denied. There's an article in there. A lot of good work from Ginger included in that, the articles there regarding whether it's the mining operation, Sawyer's Fun Park. That came before the planning board where they wanted to put some of the outdoor go-karts and that sort of thing. They have since petitioned the city of Greenville to annex and have that as an allowed use there within them. So there's an article in there about the outcome of that event. Also highlights one of our, another ARPA project. Eric spoke of ARPA project for the community centers, but we also have another one regarding a water line in the northern part of Pitt County near Whitehurst Station. We've partnered with Greenville Utilities to provide public water to an area that is not currently served by public water. They're relying on wells, and they're having issues with good quality drinking water in that area. So through those ARPA funding, we were able to partner with them to hopefully get that water line extended and serve that population. Finally, there's some articles in there regarding the farmers market. Y'all may have heard a lot on the news lately about that, so we've included that in your packet. That currently falls under the planning department, so just wanted to keep you up to date on what's going on with that. Outside of that, that's all I have, unless there's any questions that you have.
Questions, Jonas? Thank you, sir. Any other business to come before the board?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a motion I'd like to have considered.
Okay.
My motion is that the 2024 Pitt County Planning Board, here assembled, presents to Mr. James Rhodes, our Pitt County Planning Director, a letter of gratitude and appreciation for his 35 years of service to Pitt County, for his leadership, counsel, good humor, and innovative contributions to the Pitt County Planning Board. This letter of gratitude and appreciation would be presented to Mr. James Rhodes prior to his retirement with the board's well wishes in his future endeavors.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second has been made. Obviously, Mr. Rhodes is not here. His last day of employment, I believe, is on February the 29th. But there's a motion on the floor, so any discussion on the motion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. We'll draw up a letter from the board, and one of us will hopefully be able to present that to Mr. Rhodes maybe next week, because next week is the date. So try to get it to him before he gets out of here. So I know he's not here today. but he's probably watching from somewhere, so, James, we appreciate you. Just wanted to let you know that. Any other business? Motion to adjourn?
Good deal.
Thank you.